Hello there. This is number 14 in the series of paranormal investigation stories. Following the number 13, in which I mentioned about Annesley Hall and the everything is not as you may expect, I became quite disillusioned with the paranormal world in general. But after a short break, I decided to join with a group of people from Yorkshire and Humberside, and we became known as Spiritual Renaissance. Our first ever investigation was at a place called RAF Holmpton, which is in East Yorkshire, not far from the coast, and Withernsea. RAF Holmpton is actually an underground nuclear bunker. We were the first ever people to investigate that particular place. No other group had ever been down there before, which made it very, very interesting for us as a team, because nobody had any preconceived ideas of what to expect, what we might find, etc. On driving through the countryside close to Withernsea, we turned down this lane and came to what appeared to be a bungalow. That was all that was visible above ground, was a bungalow. And we entered into the car park there, and we were greeted by the Brigadier, a gentleman called James Fox. A very nice guy who had worked at RAF Holmpton for roughly 40 years. He took us into the building, which has been turned into a museum, a shop, but it is also partly still an operational base. So there were areas of the bunker that we were not allowed to enter into. He gave us a little talk about the building itself and how it was built during the Cold War, and the bunker was actually supposedly bomb-proof. Thinking nothing of it, we opened this door and he told us to go down some steps and follow the corridor. So we went down, I think it was 2 flights of stairs, and there before us stretched out a corridor which must have been at least 100 yards long to a bend, and it was a gradual slope downwards all the time. James had told us prior to walking down this corridor that at one point, I think it was an electrician who was working down there, and he had actually seen Roman soldiers walk through the wall, across the corridor, and disappear into the other side of the wall. We didn't see anything like that at all. I forgot to mention that on this particular trip we had advertised it in the Hull Daily Mail, and also a couple of reporters from a publication called This Is Hull were with us. Blair was one of them, and I seem to remember the other guy was called Steve, but I wouldn't swear to that. I have actually sent Blair a message to ask if he confirmed that for me. Along with these two, there was also about 20 people who had paid for the pleasure to come along with us. This wasn't my idea, this was the leader of the group's idea. So we carried on walking down this corridor, which turned off to the right into another corridor where there was a steel caged part of the building which looked to have an electrical generator in and some other electrical dials and equipment. On the right hand side there was a desk where an RAF person would have been there checking in who came in and who came out of the building. While we were walking past there, one of the team said that they had seen someone stuck to the back of the electrical equipment, obviously wearing RAF uniform, as this was an RAF base. We pushed through some rubber doors, and the sight that met us was incredible. The whole floor just stretched out beyond us. It was like one of the biggest supermarkets you could wish to come across, with a flight of stairs going down to an identically big area. The whole place was absolutely vast, and from what you saw on above ground level, you would never have guessed what was going on underneath. We went into the first room on the left as you went in was the comms room, I believe it was called, where there was a huge map and like a croupier's rake where they used to push aeroplanes across in times of war, in times of conflict, to see where they were with regard to enemy planes, etc. We all sat in there for a while. We had the lights turned out, and it was called out, is there anybody there? If you are, can you give us a sign? Could you make a noise? And it was at this point where somebody said that they had heard a definite voice in the ear saying, please help me, which really terrified this person, as prior to being in that bunker, they didn't believe in ghosts, they didn't believe in the spirit world. They'd just come along to check what we did and what was going on. We left there and walked into the hospital room. And in the hospital room, it had quite a strange feeling inside it. I didn't feel really anything untoward, but one of the team members again was aware of a gentleman laying in the bed. Possibly again just residual energy. Personally, I picked up nothing. It was a very interesting place to be, and we decided to leave a trigger object in there, which again was an old penny which had been drawn round on a piece of paper, left there. The door was locked, camera placed on it to see if anything would come and move it. From there we entered what was known as the bomb room, and several of the guests kind of jumped back with shock, because there on the wall were two sets of what I can only describe as overalls, which would have been worn by people working within that bomb environment. But on first view, as you're going into the semi-darkness, they just look like people stood against the wall. So it goes to show again that your mind can play tricks, and you can see things that aren't really there. Anyway, we were informed that there was a coffin-shaped type of box, more a sarcophagus, laid there on the floor. And within that box, when it was opened, was an unprimed nuclear bomb. And James had told us that that bomb would have been available and ready for use within 20 minutes of any call coming in for its necessity, which again is quite a scary and freaky thought when you think about it. From there we went on to the dormitories where the people from the Air Force had slept, those who worked there. And apparently in its period of time, possibly 14,000 people worked there, which is quite a lot of people. Within the dormitory we did hear certain noises, which I think at the end of the day we all put down to the movement of pipes. However, on returning to that room alone later that evening, I went into the room and I heard a distinct voice saying, "Time will tell." And I can still hear that voice to this day in my ear. Time will tell. And it appeared as though it had come from another world. It was an unearthly voice. From there we walked on and we came up to an area where there was no public allowed anymore because it was still an operational base beyond that point. We walked around the bottom floor. We picked several EVPs up in the theatre area, along again with a lot of orbs on photographs. While we were in the theatre area, we all sat down and we all explained to the gathered people just exactly what all the equipment was, why we were using it, like the EMF meter, the voice recorders, infrared cameras, etc., etc. And from that point we gave out these equipment to the people who paid to come on the investigation. And they were all fascinated going round with the EMFs and trying to pick up voices on the EVPs. All in all, it was a really good night. But we found no concrete evidence of any haunting at that particular time. However, we came to a stairwell, and there within the stairwell, one of the group said, "I feel that someone's dead body has laid here, but it's been hoisted by the belt on the trousers, and the body has been hoisted up." And when we looked up, there was indeed a hoist, which had been used for lifting this, that and the other. But this person felt that this body had been lifted by the belt on the trousers over the balcony at the top, placed on the landing before it could be taken away from the building. We went back upstairs and we spoke with James Fox the Brigadier, and he informed us that one of the guys who worked in the bomb room was quite a big chap, and he'd actually died of a heart attack while working down there. And because of his size, he was too heavy for anybody to carry him up the stairs. And he had indeed been hoisted by the belt on his trousers onto the upper landing. We went upstairs and had a coffee. We returned back down. We set up some more equipment. Blair from This Is Hull, he sat in the passageway with an old television which was kind of placed out of tune, a bit like the ghost spirit boxes you see today, trying to pick up on anything if possible. But unfortunately we picked up on nothing significant again. And we'd decided that this place was so vast that we must go again. As a group, Spiritual Renaissance never returned, which I will come to at a later point. But I, along with two other paranormal groups, actually did return to RAF Holmpton. And one time in particular I returned alone with another person. And over the next two of these uploads, I will explain what was found when we were down there using pendulums, Ouija boards, holding a séance, etc., etc. But this first one was really a very interesting investigation for us. And James Fox the Brigadier has said in times past that ours was still the most successful and the most honest investigation that there has ever been at RAF Holmpton, because quite a lot of groups followed us who basically were frightening themselves. And that's all I will say at this point. And it's sad to say that now there are no more investigations allowed at RAF Holmpton, purely because certain groups who were involved in there unfortunately stole some of the museum exhibits, which is an absolutely disgraceful thing to do. We as a group always left everything exactly as it was. If we moved anything, we placed it back where we had found it, and we never ever created any trouble there. And it was a wonderful place to be. And once again for this one, number 14, thank you all again for watching. Please feel free to subscribe to the YouTube site, click like, feel free to leave a comment, and thank you again. Namaste. Stay safe and stay well.